Welcome to Copy Chief Radio. Today's show is a new breed episode where today's most innovative marketing and copywriting stars share their most effective methods for optimizing results in the fast-changing world of direct response marketing. To check out all the CCR episode types, go to copychief.com/copychiefradio. Everybody, welcome. It's Kev here with my new friend, Laura Lopuch. Laura, it's great to meet you and chat with you. And I appreciate you offering to share how you've sort of cracked the code, if I may, on cold outreach email. This is definitely one of those things that I know just about everybody would avoid if they could. Right? And so I love that you've embraced this. You've obviously been very successful with it. And now you're teaching it in a way that can make it not so painful because it's just inherently so kind of weirdness we attach to it. And so I'm excited to hear how you've gotten past all that.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Kevin. I'm really excited. I know a lot of people kind of equate cold emails to like going to the dentist and getting like a root canal.
Yeah.
And it actually doesn't have to be that hard. A lot of the pain is actually imagined.
Cool. Well, I know we're gonna talk about it, and you've got a download for everybody at Laura Lopuch. It's LauraLopuch.com. This will all be in the show notes for you, of course. LauraLopuch.com/CCR is where you can get the special information that she's prepared for you. That'll probably have a lot of what we talk about in there. So get that straight and look for that in the show notes. So where do we begin, and how did you begin to understand how to do this better? What was your breakthrough?
My breakthrough was I was starting off as a newbie copywriter. I was totally dumped into the deep end of the freelancing pool because I had quit my job in a flurry of rage. I'm sure a lot of folks listening can relate.
Nice. Yes. Burn the ships.
I'm just done with it. I'm over it. Let me out of here. So yeah, I totally burnt all the bridges and then was kind of like left out there going, all right, I've got like one $200 a month client. What do I do next? And I didn't have a budget. I didn't know what Facebook ads were. I definitely wasn't going to be spending money on any sort of like marketing when nothing was coming in the door. So I was looking at my skill set, and I spent the previous like 6 to 8 years working in a law firm and sending lots and lots of emails because you got to CYA everything that you do. It doesn't exist until it's documented, right? For a lawyer.
Right.
And so I was really comfortable using emails to get people to do stuff and to agree to stuff, because people don't actually want to work with any lawyers, even if it's your own lawyer that maybe your insurance company hired to defend you in a case, which is what we were doing. So I just started cold emailing people. I was like, why not? The worst they can say is no. And that was a great idea until I actually started cold emailing. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so scary.
Yeah.
I set like a weekly goal of sending out like 25 cold emails a week. And I figured a weekly goal was much easier to match my energy. Like some days I wouldn't feel like writing anything because I was so caught up in the mental game of like, well, what am I going to do? Where do I get clients? But the next day I'd get all fired up and I could fire off quite a few cold emails. So I just started cold emailing. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea that people had so much fear around cold emailing. I just figured this was the only way. And I was not going to start cold calling people. That was like way scarier than cold emailing for me. So I just started sending off cold emails after cold emails. And it took me about 3 months of just silence until I finally started getting replies. And that was when things started upticking for me. And I started getting clients. I started having to figure out how to do sales calls. And fast forward a couple of years, I'd gotten clients, signed a big ongoing clients. And then we parted ways, which was totally cool. And I was trying to figure out how to niche down, right? You get to that point in your career that you're like, maybe I should do this. Maybe I should niche down. And that was about the time that I realized cold emailing and what I had accomplished, which was actually signing clients, getting like a 50% open rate on this cold email campaign that I'd started my business on the back of was kind of a big deal, and that nobody knew how to do cold emails, and that I had a very different approach to cold emails than everybody else.
Yeah.
And that's when I finally accepted the fact that maybe I'm here to teach copywriters, especially, how to write cold emails in a way that gets responses and gets you new clients. I really believe that the copywriters are some of the best people to send cold emails because they're already great writers. You're already well versed in this art of persuasion. You don't have to start from scratch.
Right. Yeah. Think about it. I mean, it's what we do in our work, but it's so funny what happens. I coach a lot of freelance copywriters, and we're always talking about making themselves their number one client, and how to do that, and strategies for that, and what to do with their time. But there's no getting around the fact that something happens in your brain when it's time to talk about yourself and your own stuff. Have you identified that? And you have a magic switch we can flip to not think that way about it when we're talking about ourselves.
Yeah. The magic switch is to think of your cold email recipient, who you're talking to as a person, first of all, like get to know the person. So, we're talking about research, do a little internet sleuthing or stalking, whatever floats your boat. Pretend they're maybe an ex, that you're really curious about what have they been up to in the past couple of years, and figure out, who this person is. And then from there, you'll start to get a good idea of what their problem is and how you can potentially solve that problem for them. And that is the key. That's like the turning point I've found, is once you approach the whole cold email as offering a solution. You're not actually trying to pitch them. You're not actually trying to sell them. You're not trying to get married in a cold email. You're actually just trying to start up a conversation. Exactly. Yeah. Love that. The people we've seen do it best, and some people have even taught this within our community a little bit. There's a thing I call the 2-in-1. And one thing is, like, I'll just real quick thumbnail, because I'm sure your stuff is relevant to this in some way, is like especially when you're starting out, it really, no matter where you are in your career as a freelancer, comes a point when you have to stop just looking for yes and decide what kind of yeses you actually want. Right. And so you think about who would be your ideal prospect, your ideal client. You get on either their list directly or get in their marketing channel. For copywriters, they must have a marketing channel to have a need for us. and study them, and have a folder for their stuff, read their emails, see what kind of offers they're sending. And when you do that, and, because we're copywriters, we can't stop ourselves from critiquing. It's what we do. We just have the goggles and they're never not on. So something that's been really effective is we will make a quick Loom video and say, hey, I loved this email you sent out today. I always love reading your stuff, and here's why, because you do this and that, right? And a little praise never hurt as a door opener. And hopefully it's sincere if you're actually wanting to work with this person. But then maybe there's something in there that you're kind of curious about, or you saw missing, or something another client or another person is doing effectively, and they're not yet, right? It's all about intent and approach. It's not this, hey, I'm brilliant and you probably didn't know this, but I'm going to shed some light on you and what's broken in your problem. It's more like, hey, love what you're doing, but I was curious if you've heard of this because I know it's really effective. You're just being helpful, right? And when you send somebody information or talk about something they're doing, of course, that always works to get their attention, because everybody likes praise. Everybody likes to know the stuff they're working hard on is being received well. And if you do that in a way that doesn't all of a sudden just go into this cold pitch, then it's a really effective way to open a door. And so it sounds like when you say research, that's kind of what you're talking about too, right? Is like, this isn't about spray and pray and I'm going to send out 100 a week and somebody's got to answer. It's about saying, if I'm only sending 25 this week, I'm going to know there's a relevant reason that I'm reaching out to them. Yeah, exactly. And that's what I discovered during those 3 months of silence, and what later transformed into what I call the relevancy method, which is essentially boiled down to answering that question in your reader's mind, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
And if you can write a cold email that answers that question for them through their lens of their business or why they should hire you and how you can help them make more money, how you can fix that broken sales page or that broken email sequence that you noticed, or even just help them get more sales and what that looks like in terms of like actual money dollars, that's going to go a long way for you. And really getting on someone's email list is a fabulous way. That's how I got one of my biggest clients right out the door. Is I was on her email list and I'd wanted to buy her program for a long time. And then I realized she was lacking customer case studies, which is what I was specializing in at the time. And she needed those. And her mentor had a ton on his site, but she didn't have any on hers. So you can see how I used what's in it for me and answered that question for her through the lens of her business, because she knew it was a problem. I didn't really have to educate her. I just had to point out the fact that I knew it was a problem and I could help her solve it. And she doesn't have to go looking for a solution because, hey, here I am.
Exactly. Right. That's the beauty of it. Worst thing can happen is they don't reply at all. Maybe they never saw it. Oh, well. Right. But what I always tell people too is like, the great thing about this is as a freelancer, your best advertisement is showing your work. So even if you use that same cold outreach little lesson about the 2-in-1 as authority content, a little article or video that you post on social media, it's serving a purpose either way. So you literally cannot lose by doing this. You're gaining valuable content and potentially landing a gig.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I get a lot of questions like, don't I have to have my website up? Don't I have to send a link to my portfolio? And it's like, no,
they don't want that.
Your email. Yeah. And your email serves as all of that. They don't really need another writing sample besides your email. That serves as your introduction. You're good to go.
Yeah. Sure, have that stuff ready if they now ask, but now they're asking from a place of, oh, wow, this is impressive. I'd love to see your work, as opposed to just shoving it at somebody. I think of out in Hollywood where every agent leaves the restaurant with a script under his windshield wiper. Every valet has a script, that isn't how you should treat your portfolio. Like, please read this.
No. Cool. And I find a lot of people don't even need to look at your website as long as you can provide a link to a comparable thing that you have done or another client project that you completed that's close to what you're pitching. But I've found that I actually have never, ever had anyone who I signed as a client ask me for a portfolio link. It's kind of crazy. I don't know if it's different for your audience or not.
No, I think it's similar. Yeah. I will say there's something about when you're new in the beginning, putting together your portfolio. I think of it like the dessert case in the window of the diner, right?
Okay.
Like you should have work that you're proud of, and you've got to be able to show something. But I would say my experience was similar. Very few people definitely did ask me. It was at that point, it was more like, can you show me some live campaigns that you did recently? And of course you never want to share links to campaigns as a portfolio piece, because you don't know what happens to that copy after you release it. But I teach people now how to put together a really strong portfolio. And I definitely have seen, because I also connect a lot of companies with copywriters, that's where they'll start their search. I'll say, hey, here's 3 people I think would be a really good fit for you. Why don't you reach out and ask them for some samples? And they do. And then they can usually tell from the portfolio who's a good fit for them. So people do want to see style and things. But I'm curious. So that leads me to kind of my next question. What kind of companies were you reaching out to in the beginning? And I would imagine that evolved over time, certainly after you started getting some response. So what did you learn about reaching out to the right kind of prospect?
Yeah, I learned a lot about handpicking who could actually have the budget for you and what that looked like. I was reaching out to startups, mainly SaaS companies, because I found that they were kind of lacking in the writing department and the copywriting department. They were really strong on other aspects, but I was reaching out to the marketing directors at those companies because they had the budget. And so then I wouldn't have to wonder if they could pay my rate. or if I was charging enough to make my time worth it. And then I started evolving a little bit and trying like solopreneurs, and quickly found that they were not quite ready to hand over the reins of their business to a copywriter. And that's something that you find out. Like, that's what comes with cold emailing is I like to think of every email as a little test. You create a hypothesis, you write this email around this hypothesis, this educated guess that you've made, and then you send it out and you wait to see if you were on track. Right. And if you were, you're going to get a response, right? You might get like I'm interested, but now's not a good time. And that's totally cool. You can always ask like, when is a good time? When should I follow back up with you? When will you be thinking about this? And try to keep that conversation going. Or if you don't get a response, that's also cool. That also gives you data. Right. And you're like, okay, I didn't present a strong enough argument for you to say yes. I didn't ease your objections. I didn't make you feel safe enough just saying yes. And that's okay, because that gives you information to rework your email and figure out, try another shot. It's really just that. It's just trying it. And if they don't say anything, that's cool. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, it really doesn't hurt that bad. And you do kind of have to just do it. Like you said, it was super nerve-wracking when you started. Yeah. And you go, why am I even so nervous about this? But it really does feel like you're just putting your life on the line socially or something. And nobody wants to be the weirdo who bothers people. You kind of feel like that's what you're doing. But I think with any sales, it's a numbers game. And like you said, no is very good data. I used to work with people who worked in a phone sales room. And it's just the ones who were really good at it were just waiting for the person who they were supposed to be talking to that day. But you might have to call 20 people to get to that person. And, just got to stomach it until then. So, and of course, this is stuff that is valuable at all points in your career. You will get to a point. It's one of these things you got to do more of in the beginning, but it really is for a lot of people, the X factor in whether their career takes off or not. But usually once you get a few clients in, it starts to become repeat business and referral and word of mouth that replaces the need to cold outreach. Is that what you found as well?
It is what I found. And also at that point, you're segueing a little bit on your focus from clients to maybe publicity. And so you're pitching and sending cold emails in a different way. You're maybe pitching to get on podcasts like this one. So you're still looking at a pitch or a cold email through the lens of the relevancy method. Like, what's in it for the reader? How can I help them get the best thing out of this? How can I present a solution to their problem? And if you're pitching a podcast, it's how can I give them, their audience, the best content, the best lesson, the best interview? How can I solve this problem for the podcast host of giving his audience really good, gritty stuff that his audience just raves about? And so once you start approaching it from how do I solve this problem that they are already aware of? I mean, most podcast hosts know that they need to have guests coming in, stuff to talk about. It's that content creation. So how can you help them get their wheels turning and, start pitching in that way versus me. I need publicity. I need more clients. Like, that's definitely the wrong approach.
Ask any experienced freelancer and they'll tell you that getting started and landing those first few clients, it's the hardest part. If you're struggling to find consistent work, you want to build more confidence in your skills, or you're just starting out in your freelance journey, don't worry. That's exactly why I created Escape Velocity. It's my step-by-step coaching program for how to kickstart a freelance career, attract quality clients, and confidently deliver great work. Let me help you find and close good gigs so you can quickly launch and grow a successful and sustainable freelance writing business. Learn more at copychief.com/EV. copychief.com/EV. I'll see you there. let's talk about mistakes you see people making when they send out cold emails, how they're thinking about it, what they're doing wrong when they send them in the email itself.
Sure. So there's 3 big mistakes I usually see. And the first one is letting the fear talk you out of clicking send. And I won't lie to you, it's scary to click send. And even if you've done it in the past, it's a bit like, the best analogy I can think of is skiing. So maybe you learned how to ski when you were little, and now you're hitting the slopes again as an adult, and you're more aware of your fragility. You're aware of how easily things can go sideways. But the only way that you can get down the hill is to put your skis on and take it a little bit at a time. And then pretty soon you start building confidence, and you're feeling like that 5-year-old again, and you're cutting nice grooves and jumping off ski jumps. I'm in Colorado, so of course I'm thinking mountains and all those activities.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. Like, there's going to be that drop in your stomach, and it doesn't matter at what stage in your business, but it's just normal. It's just part of your brain trying to keep you safe, because back in the caveman days, it kept you from flying off cliffs and getting eaten alive and all these crazy things that were happening in our world back then. It's just an outdated portion of your brain that's trying to keep you in the herd, keep you from being different, from being the last person that's outrunning the bear, to keep you from getting eaten. But it's not.
Yeah.
It's not like it hasn't updated to the newest like Apple software update, right? It's still like beyond. Like, I don't even know how many software upgrades will go, but hundreds, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you just got to accept that as part of the process.
That's true. Yeah. There are certain fears that are there to actually protect you, but there are other ones that, you're right, like are there because of the same brain activity, but just need to be fought past. And what's great is the reward is big when, I mean, not only just getting a yes, but it's a process. And the part that happens quickly is, if you said it took 3 months, and a lot of people might go, oh, there's no way I would keep doing it for 3 months if I was getting crickets, right? But it's that whole idea of like being what is like a foot from gold, the famous story of the miner, who turned back, and then the other sold it to another miner, and he had to just whack it twice. And then the gold was there,
Yeah.
But how do people know if you must have had some signals within those 3 months that some part of it was worth it?
There were some signals. I installed tracking software to make sure my emails were making it into their inbox and even getting opened. So that gave me some peace of mind. Check out like Boomerang, Mixmax, Streak does this too. So that gave me some peace of mind to know that it was making it where I needed it to go. Yeah. And then it gave me information on whether or not the subject line was working. So then I could start working on improving the subject line so the email actually got open so that people could take action. But it also helped me see, how I could. So it was giving me like little hints, little like drips of, serotonin or whatever to keep me going. And then I got an email that was forwarded. I got an email from like another marketing manager that I hadn't cold emailed. My cold email had gotten forwarded to her, and she was reaching out to me, like this person I didn't know was reaching out to me to see about getting case studies done. And so that was a little hint of you're on the right path. And then from there, I just started taking the approach of like throwing spaghetti at the wall, like maybe this will work, maybe that will work, and just trying to be open with it. Yeah. And I will tell you that eventually the fear dissipated to something more manageable. Right. The first couple 10 emails that you click send on, like your hands are shaking, you're sweating bullets. It's crazy. Even now, like 6 years after I started sending cold emails, if I start up a cold email campaign, say to get on so many podcasts or, publicity, or I still get very nervous, and it's just part of the process. But the cool thing is that you start to get responses, and then it starts to feel like you're winning the lottery. You get these unexpected jolts of just pure joy that you crack the code. and that you're one of the few people that did it. And then you get like replies to your cold emails from like Noah Kagan and Rob Walling and all these big names. And you're like, this is working. Yeah. This is cool. And then you get a little addicted and then you might have some problems.
No, I can't stop. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a cool, when you talk to people about, oh, how did you make it? Especially with freelancing. That's why it's endlessly fascinating to me, because everybody has a unique story of what they were doing before, something's got to change a moment, and then how they found their way into success. And it always starts with some hustle and grind like this, right? In that just pure determination.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's no way around it, everybody. You follow a plan that works. All right. I don't want to stop the other two. So there were 3 big mistakes. That was one, was just not hitting send.
Yep. Number 2 is not answering that question for your reader. What's in it for me? I see so many cold emails, and I'm sure you get a ton, where it's all about the writer. And you're like, I don't care about you, frankly. Like, you're a stranger to me. I might care if you're a friend, you know, you rambling on about your business and your goals, like, but as a stranger, I don't care. So try to just approach it, you know, we're talking about your reader of your cold email. And that's why copywriters are so good once they start to send cold emails, because that's what your education and all your training is teaching you how to think. It's teaching you how to approach it from that standpoint. And I swear to you, if you master this one thing, answering that question, what's in it for me, your emails will stand up and out in the inbox. And the cool thing is that so many people are sending such bad cold emails that it doesn't take that much for your cold email to stand out.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah.
Yeah. The bar is so low.
Yeah, that's true. It kind of takes the pressure off the fact that you're sending them, because people are getting them anyway.
Oh, yeah.
And so if you send a bad one, nobody even notices because they're used to just deleting anyway. But if you send a good one, like you said, it's like, oh God, I mean, thank you for actually sending a good one of these, you know? All right, well, I'll save my other thoughts because I have another question if you don't answer it as your third one. So I'm going to let you tell me the third big mistake.
The third big mistake I see is people focusing on length instead of helping the reader feel comfortable saying yes and proving that you're not some internet weirdo, as Brian Harris of Video Fruit likes to say. You've got to prove that you, 1, know who you're cold emailing, so you've done your research. 2, that you're a trustworthy person. You're not like some crazy psycho operating out of your mother's basement with, or like a robot. Exactly. Yeah. Like that you're legit, that maybe you've done this for other people before, or at the least that you've gotten paid to do this, or you have some skill set in this, in what you're pitching. So if you're sending a cold sales email, providing a link to maybe a blog article, it could be your own blog article. That's totally fine. But just proving that you can do what you're saying you can do. As Joanna Wiebe of Copy Hacker says, like she's got, the 7 editorial sweeps. And so one of those is prove it. Like you can say it, and you got to prove it so that they feel comfortable saying yes to you. And so maybe that's including a screenshot. Maybe that's including a link. Maybe that's like name dropping if you're pitching publicity, other outlets or publications that you've been featured in. Just providing some sense of security so your reader feels okay about saying yes and not having to worry about, oh no, I should never have said yes. How do I get out of this?
Right, exactly. Yeah, those are great. Really good tips. I want to talk specifically about, you talk about length, and that's a really good point. Because you can't predict exactly how much attention somebody will give you, right? Sort of the law in copy is, as long as it's interesting, it's not too long. But obviously, people are going to assess what they give their time to based on length, right? If it takes a scroll to get through, they're either going to save it or do something. They might not consume it right away. What about subject lines? That's probably the biggest one, right? A more straightforward approach, or do you try to sneak in, sounding friendly? What do you do?
I try to sound like a friend. I try to sound like If you look at your friends' subject lines in your inbox or the people that you know emailing you one-to-one versus newsletter emails or marketing emails or sales emails, they look different. Those emails from someone that you know. So you want to incorporate a bit of that with a bit of like an open curiosity, opening that curiosity loop where they want to find out what you're talking about. So for example, one of my publicity pitch cold emails said, "You have me chuckling at Costco." It's just like, what do you mean? What did I say? Why were you laughing at Costco? Another one that I like to use is like big thanks and expressing some gratitude. That one is really reliable, but you have to answer that in your email. Otherwise, you're proving yourself untrustworthy right off the bat, which is not a good way to start.
Yeah, that's the tricky part because nobody wants to feel manipulated. I get a ton for people inviting themselves on the podcast or an agency that does this. And the thing that, and this is again how you have to be conscious of how markets evolve, worked for a minute when they would listen to one episode and quote something about it is in the intro. Love your show. Listen to it all the time. I really love the recent episode with blah, 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 when you said blah, blah, blah. And they said blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God, that's so true. And then they do the cut and paste immediately. Like, and I have a great suggestion for our guest. John Williams is the CEO of this company. And for 9 years, he's been a leader. And you're like, what? And so how do you, with the pitchmen on the boardwalk used to call make the turn from new best friend to pitching what you've got?
That's a good question. About the segue, it's about like that tap dance from turning it from you, who you're writing to the author. And so I found it's best to try to pick an episode that's not recent. So it's one that you would genuinely listen to on your own. Yeah. You weren't pitching this person at all. Something that you're actually interested in, because A, it's going to be much easier for you to pay attention. And B, you'll actually get some really useful things that will probably start your wheels turning. And as soon as your wheels start turning and ideas start coming forth, I found that you will likely find a connection point between the themes that were brought up in that episode that you listened to and what you are talking about. You'll find some like strings of connection, and it sometimes takes a little while to find those. And that's totally okay. For my brain, it helps to put things in the percolator. And then a couple of days later, I get like this report and it's like, here you go. This is what you should say. Sometimes that will work. And sometimes you might get like an instantaneous, like, aha, this is the string. But a lot of times, if you can find that thematic connection point, that thematic string between that episode and what you're pitching. So a lot of times for me, it's talking about fear, or it's talking about like mindset blocks. If I'm going to be pitching cold emails, I'm talking about being scared. So if I can find some theme in that episode about being scared, going back to that one podcast that I pitched with the subject line, "You have me scared at Costco." In that episode, the host was interviewing Kira Hug of the Copywriter Club. And they were talking about being introverts and how introverts are really scared to talk too much because everybody will see their weirdness, and their weirdness will just like spill out of their mouths and they'll be exposed.
Yeah.
So as an introvert, I really related to that. And so I tied it between that introvert and that being that scared into, speaking of which, another thing that has a lot of entrepreneurs and copywriters scared of is cold emails. And then that could allow me to segue into my pitch. So just try to find some sort of connection point so it doesn't feel such like a scene cut.
So it's basically like just go a little deeper and have a little more of a conversation about it than just a gratuitous sort of fill in the blank. I love your stuff now that I've got your attention, right? So just give a little more thoughtfulness and context to it. Yeah. I like that. So then if I'm the cynical listener, then I would say, okay, but if I'm supposed to send 25 of these a week and I've got to do this level of research, like how's that even possible?
That's a good question, especially if maybe you're like me and you're kind of on a time budget. I'm right now only working about 10 hours a week just because I've got 2 little kids. And I got into this game to not what is it? Work to live. Right? I want to work to live, not live to work. I want the freedom.
Yeah.
And so at that point, you have to adjust your goals. You have to adjust your priorities and say, maybe 25 isn't doable unless I hire outside help and teach them the process that I've discovered works. And then in that case, you're using someone else's time and you still keep your time. Or you adjust your goals like I have and figure out, okay, I'm only going to go after 3, but I want them to be the best 3 opportunities or clients or podcasts or webinars that I could get right now. Yeah. So I'm going to pitch above my weight. I'm going to pitch higher than I think I could do. Yeah. I'm going to take on a challenge and try to really one up my last winning pitch and see what I can do. And the cool thing about doing that is you challenge yourself. So suddenly you're not bored anymore. And you learn a lot in the process because maybe the yeses aren't as easy as they would have been if you were pitching, a colleague that you know.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Now, I like what you're saying about, look, it's kind of the principles I like to focus on, which is you should be pitching to people who you're genuinely interested in helping.
Yeah,
because they're doing something now that inspires you, right? Or in a field or a niche that you find inspiring. So it's all congruent and it's not just a task. You're putting energy into it all. It's manifesting this new reality in some intangible ways, but in also very tangible ways. But it'll feel a lot less like a task if you're staying within those principles of being inspired and sharing your passion for whatever you're reading from them or seeing from them, right? So
definitely. And that translates too. Like they can feel, not to get super woo-woo, but they can feel that energy in your email and they get excited by your excitement and it's contagious. And suddenly they are excited about having you on and talking to you and meeting you. And you're like, wow, if I'd only known it would be as easy as getting excited and sending a genuine compliment and then solving their solution, I would never have been so scared of cold emails.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's that thing of sometimes you just got to tell people, have faith and do it. Like you said, I like that you focused on, it's like, number one, it's going to suck. Just do it. Right. But it's because sometimes you just got to trust and have faith and see, because you could or not do anything. And that's a guaranteed result.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what are you going to do? This has been great, Laura. I appreciate this really good information, really helpful. It's great meeting you. And again, go to lauralopuch.com/CCR, as in Copy Chief Radio, and get the special download. Appreciate it. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Kevin.
Hey, don't forget your goodies. Head over to copychief.com/CopyChiefRadio to get some great free stuff to help you put the things you hear on the show into action for your business. copychief.com/CopyChiefRadio.